The darkest mysteries you were never meant to hear about. A melody that's said to make children lose their minds. 9 bodies torn apart on a frozen Russian mountain. And a girl held hostage for 44 days of pure hell. None of these stories were meant to be found. They were buried, redacted, or quietly dismissed. But they still exist, if you know where to look. These aren't just urban legends. They're the darkest mysteries you were never supposed to hear. Let's begin. Lavender Town Syndrome. In 1996, Pokémon Red and Blue launched what would become one of the most beloved game franchises of all time. A bright, kid-friendly Game Boy adventure, but its reach soon grew. Books, TV, comics, toys, clothing, and, decades later, the viral hit Pokémon Go. On the surface, it's all family fun. But hidden behind the innocent adventure was something far more disturbing. A specific village in the game, Lavender Town, stood out. Lavender Town sits deep inside 1996's Pokémon Red, an eerie, out-of-the-way village dominated by a looming Pokémon Tower, the series' first on-screen graveyard. Hundreds of fallen creatures are buried there, and their restless spirits drift through the misty streets, turning random battles into ghostly encounters. Its pixelated visuals were gloomy, but the real chill comes from the soundtrack. A chiptune melody filled with sharp, dissonant tones. At first, it just felt eerie. But then the rumors began. Urban legends claim that back in the 90s, hundreds of Japanese children began suffering from insomnia, paranoia, nosebleeds, and even brain hemorrhaging, after listening to the music. Some were said to have taken their own lives. The cause? Frequencies baked into the track, undetectable to adults, but painfully audible to young, developing minds. Binaural beats hidden in the song were said to affect brain activity, triggering nausea, seizures, and worse. Of course, Nintendo denied everything. Officially, it's just a creepypasta. Just a myth. But players began uploading videos showing strange behavior after looping the track. Others claimed the original version of the game was altered after release, patching the frequency without saying a word. No headlines. No statement. Just a silent update. Cute monsters collecting badges. Not here. In Lavender Town, nostalgia meets the paranormal, and Pokémon's happiest memories take a very dark turn. Dyatlov Pass Incident. It started as a normal expedition. 9 young hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, set out into the Ural Mountains in January 1959. Their goal? Mount Otordon, a peak which the local Mansi, and Obubric indigenous people, call "Don't Go There," warning that because the narrow gaps between the mountains are seen as sacred and dangerous. Full of energy and optimism, they laugh, play music, and document their trip in journals and photographs. Everything seems fine. Then they vanish. Weeks later, rescuers found their tent, on the side of Kholat Syakhl, which locals called Mountain of the Dead, partly collapsed, half buried in snow. But what disturbed them wasn't the tent's condition. It was what they found inside, and what they didn't find. Everything inside was in perfect order, equipment neatly arranged, food still laid out, journals untouched. Yet the tent had been slashed open from the inside. Something, or someone, terrified them so much they ripped their way out and ran barefoot into sub-zero temperatures. 5 died of hypothermia, but the remaining 4 didn't. Rescuer found them on a den under the snow. One had a crushed skull, fragments pushed into the brain. Another had ribs shattered so violently it caused massive internal bleeding. One woman's body was missing her eyes, tongue, and part of her lips. No external wounds, no signs of struggle, and no indication of foul play the Soviet authorities were willing to admit. Some blamed an avalanche, others whispered about secret military experiments, Yeti attacks, or infrasound weapons. One fact stands out. Before rescuers even reached the site, planes had already flown over the area. When the bodies were found, the investigation was quickly locked down. Those who tried to dig deeper hit nothing but dead ends. The official Soviet report claimed there was no crime, only a compelling natural force that killed all 9 hikers. By May 1959, just 3 months after the tragedy, the case was closed. Many Russians couldn't help but wonder, was the government hiding something far more sinister? 60 years later, we're still asking, what terrified 9 healthy people so badly, they fled into certain death? Junko Furuta. In 1988, 17-year-old Junko Furuta was an ordinary high school student with ordinary dreams, until everything stopped on the night of November 25th. Junko Furuta was both top of her class and widely admired for her looks. One classmate, Hiroshi Miyano, became infatuated and asked her out again and again. Junko always declined. She wasn't interested in dating. Humiliated, Miyano, who bragged about his ties to the Yakuza, decided to take revenge. 4 male classmates, Joe Ogura, age 17, Shinji Minato, age 16, Yasushi Watanabe, age 17, and the ringleader of the group, Miyano Hiroshi, age 18, dragged her off the street and into captivity. What followed was not just a crime, it was human cruelty in its rawest, most monstrous form. For 44 days, Junko was held captive in the home of one of her attackers. She was beaten, raped, tortured, and degraded. Junko was subjected to sexual abuse by 100 different men and 400 times over the next 40 days. Objects forced inside her body, bottles, broken and unbroken, metal rod, barbecue skewers, and even firecrackers. She was subjected to burns from cigarettes and lighter fluid, and her body was severely bruised and injured. The extreme and relentless nature of the abuse caused her to lose control of her bodily functions. Her body began to rot while she was still alive. What made the situation even more disturbing was that the abuse wasn't happening in secret. The perpetrators' parents were aware that something was wrong. Initially, when Minato's parents were present, they would force Junko to pretend to be his girlfriend. However, this pretense stopped once they realized Minato's parents would not report the situation to the police. Minato's mother later admitted that their inaction was due to their fear of their son, who had a history of violence towards them and alleged connections to the Yakuza. One time, Junko even managed to call the police, but they didn't intervene. She begged them to kill her. They refused. Towards the end of her ordeal, Junko's condition had deteriorated severely. Due to her injuries, she had difficulty breathing and could no longer keep water down. Resulting from the endless assaults, her brain had also shrunk in size. Eventually, her body gave up. Malnourished, infected, and disfigured beyond recognition, Junko Furuta died. Her corpse was stuffed into a barrel filled with concrete and dumped like garbage. When police finally discovered her remains, they uncovered one of the most brutal crimes in Japanese history. And the punishment? A few years in juvenile detention. Not one of them received a life sentence. The ringleader walks free today. No justice, no closure. Just a name etched into history as the 44-day girl. The question still haunts Japan. How could something this evil happen, and be so easily forgotten? Some mysteries are urban legends. Some are government cover-ups. And some are real. The line between the internet's imagination and the world's darkest truths is thinner than we think. If you're still watching, you've already gone deeper than most. But trust me, this iceberg goes even further down. Subscribe if you want to keep going. And be careful what you click on next. Not everything you find wants to be found.